Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Superheroes, Movies, and Superhero Movies. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzel.
And today we're going to talk about Dredd. Released in 2012, directed by Pete Travis, starring Karl Urban, Olivia Thirlby, Wood Harris, and Lena Headey. I guess how you pronounce her name? Headey? I don't know. Written by Alex Garland and based off characters created by John Wagner and Carlos, I'm not going to pronounce this one correctly, Carlos Ezquerra, I'm guessing. I actually don't know how to pronounce it. I apologize. Normally we have a kind of a nostalgic section of the podcast where we talk about seeing the movie for the first time and things like that, but this movie was released just 2 years ago, and so I don't really have any of those stories. Plus, never read any Judge Dredd comics. I actually meant to research Judge Dredd a little bit before doing this episode. Completely forgot. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, I have no knowledge of Judge Dredd either.
The only thing that I really know is there was a movie with Sylvester Stallone in the early 90s, and it's based off a comic book. And in that comic book, I know he never takes off his helmet.
Oh, really?
Because I remember... Right, because one of the things that fans liked about this movie that they didn't like about the Sylvester Stallone movie was that he kept his helmet on the whole time this movie.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when I was watching it. I didn't know that, but I was like, I kind of hope they just leave the helmet as the character.
Right.
That you don't have to take off the helmet. And yeah, they did that, so I was happy they did that.
Mm-hmm. I didn't even get to see this movie in the theaters, unfortunately. I saw it after it was released on DVD. But I remember liking it, and so now we've revisited. I rewatched it today, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts, John. But Karl Urban obviously plays the title role of Judge Dredd, and Olivia Thirlby is his kind of recruit. He calls her Rookie a lot through the movie, who is Anderson. She's taking an assessment test to become a judge. She also happens to have psychic abilities.
Right, and they refer to her as a mutant.
Right, which is interesting. And then there's another character who talks about how mutants usually are kind of deformed. He says, like, sometimes they have weird, arms and legs, or no arms and legs at all. And he's like, so you lucked out. Which is interesting. That's kind of something I wouldn't have maybe minded seeing a little more of. This is obviously very contained film. The whole movie pretty much takes place within a tower. Takes place, obviously, and it's kind of almost, you could say it's kind of post-apocalyptic, almost. He says America's an irradiated wasteland, and so they've built a giant city that is from Washington, D.C. to Boston, and they call that Mega City 1. And it's just full of all these different towers. They call them sectors and blocks and things like that. So, the movie takes place all in one of those giant towers, which they call peach trees, which, coming from Atlanta, is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Since there's 1,000 peach tree streets. So we don't really get to see too much of the outside world outside of the tower, or we don't really get to see more of Mega City 1, which, if they ever made a sequel to this film, which I don't think they are, I know they're going to make like a comic book sequel.
They're not going to make a sequel, really?
I mean, maybe, unless, as far as I know, they're not, but I know they're trying to, and last I heard, they were going to just end up doing the sequel in comic book form.
Huh.
So, unfortunately,
I thought the movie was pretty popular.
I think it's, I'll look up, see how much it made, money-wise, but I don't know. I think it's popular amongst its fans.
Right. Did you ever see the Sylvester Stallone Judge Dredd?
I never did.
I have not.
It makes me kind of want to see it. But
yeah, I agree. That one didn't fare so well, I don't think.
No, I don't think so either. I think it was a bit of a failure. Although, now that I'm looking at the box office numbers, this one technically could be considered a bit of a failure. Its production budget was $50 million, and it only made domestically $13 million. 13.4. So worldwide,
whoa, that is low.
Yeah, worldwide it made $35 million. So even worldwide, it didn't make back the money it costs.
They're not going to make a sequel then.
So I doubt it. Yeah, I doubt it'll have a sequel. But which is a bummer because I actually really enjoy this film. I think it's actually pretty good fun. So I would like to see a sequel. Plus, I would like to see more of Mega City 1. Maybe get a glimpse at some of these other mutants and things like that. Maybe they have different powers, or are they all just psychics?
I have a suspicion that they're different.
Right. They have different powers.
Each other. Yeah. I liked the movie pretty well as well. It took me a little while to get into it.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it was dragging at first. But once they got those like chain guns,
right,
and started just destroying that floor, I was pretty invested at that point.
I guess we should make our obligatory statement that we are going to talk about the entire film, Dredd. If you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix, right?
Yeah.
It's streaming on Netflix. Check it out. It's not necessarily for the young ones. It's a rated R film. It's pretty violent. It's mostly CGI blood and whatnot, but it is pretty violent. So anyway, that being said, we're going to watch the whole film. If you haven't seen Dredd, you might want to watch it before you listen to the rest of the episode.
We're going to watch the whole film.
You better watch the whole film.
We just watched it.
We did, yes. That's why we're going to talk about it.
Oh, you didn't say we're going to talk about it. You said we're going to watch it.
What? Did I misspeak or something?
I don't know. Did you? Do you have it queued up? Are we supposed to rewatch it during this podcast?
I don't. I don't. I normally do that though. I do usually have it playing on mute, so I can kind of remember things.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't have that. I'm not. I guess I can pop it in. Anyway, since neither of us were really Judge Dredd comic book fans, or we just didn't read them. What do you think of Karl Urban as Judge Dredd?
Well, the first time I heard him speak, I was like, I kind of wish his voice was deeper. Not that it wasn't deep.
Right.
But I was like, it just needs a little bit more of a step down. But as the film went on, I felt like his voice fit him. I thought he did a great job.
Yeah. I think he's perfect. Like, the only thing that I know about Judge Dredd from the comics, just because from the images I've seen, is that he does that, like, he has kind of a frowny face, He's kind of like always looking angry. And Karl Urban actually does that, I think, throughout most of the movie. So I thought that was kind of a nice little touch.
Yeah, he had his 5 o'clock shadow going. He looked gruff.
Yeah, I thought he was great. Like he delivers the funny line, the little one-liners that he has. Not many of them, but he delivers those pretty well. I think he played it perfectly. I actually when I was watching it again today, I thought about, I really hope that the Escape from New York movie fails completely, the reboot that they're trying to make, and just doesn't happen, because I don't want to see a reboot of that movie.
Right.
But
Escape from Earth.
Right. I would like to see the third one. For those of you who don't know, there was Escape from New York in the 80s, and then there was Escape from LA in the 90s. And somewhere in the early 2000s, John Carpenter, I don't know if he talked about it or if he said there was a plan to do it or something, but there was a rumor that they were trying to get a third one off the ground called Escape from Earth, and it blew my mind, and I'd much rather see that.
That apparently came directly from John Carpenter.
Right. How amazing would that be?
Amazing. That's how amazing.
I don't know if you guys can tell, but we're huge fans.
And you have to have Kurt Russell again.
Right. And I would love to
see
he can
do it.
And kind of almost I don't want it to be like, that grudge match movie with Sylvester Stallone and Robert De Niro, but I would like to kind of see like an aging Snake Plissken almost, Like I don't want the movie to be a whole bunch of jokes about where's his walker and stuff like that, but
right, no, take it seriously.
Right, exactly. Or as seriously as you can for an escape movie.
Yes, exactly.
But so anyway, the new rumor right now is that the reboot, because it was a few years ago, I think they were talking about rebooting the movie, and Gerard Butler was kind of in talks to be Snake Plissken. Well, that is all fallen apart, and now there's some rumors surfacing again recently that Charlie Hunnam from Sons of Anarchy is going to be the new Snake Plissken, which is fine, I guess. But while I was watching Dredd, I was thinking, if they chose Karl Urban to be Snake Plissken, I think I would be okay with that casting choice. Again, I don't want the movie to be made. I'd rather just not see an Escape from New York reboot. But
Right.
if they're going to make it, Karl Urban, I think, would probably be close to the perfect Snake Plissken as you could probably get. Aside from Kurt Russell, obviously.
There's one more. The other one that I've heard thrown around, and it's basically all for appearances. But I think he could do it, is Josh Holloway.
Oh, yeah.
Lost.
Sawyer from Lost? Yeah.
Yes.
He could do it. He'd be all right. I think Karl Urban would be better. But Josh Holloway's not.
Karl Urban has probably a little bit more acting experience.
Mm-hmm.
Not that Josh Holloway was bad.
No.
Because, he was good.
He's good in the things I've seen him in.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to envision him as Snake Plissken. Josh Holloway, that is.
You think so?
Well, I mean, like, I don't know.
I don't know, man. Put a patch on his eye. Put a patch on his eye.
I guess. I mean, I kind of almost see him more as Snake Plissken than Charlie Hunnam. And not that I think Charlie Hunnam's a bad actor at all. But, I don't know. Anyway, aside from Snake Plissken casting rumors, we'll go back to Dredd.
I mean, that conversation holds fine, I think, because they were kind of in the same realm a little bit.
Yeah.
You've got a loner guy.
He kind of is channeling Snake Plissken a little bit in his Dredd performance, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I felt like it also had that's one thing I noted a little bit later on as the movie continued. About halfway through, I was like, this feels like a 90s action movie almost. Yeah. And kind of reminded me of RoboCop a little bit.
The original RoboCop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen the new one.
And, I think the 90s, especially the early 90s, even though you can kind of look back on them and maybe they're a little cheesy now, but I think the early 90s action films I think that was a great period of time for action movies.
It was. That was... Action movies back in the 90s were kind of what superhero movies are today.
Right. Yeah.
They were everywhere.
Right. And so you obviously had some bad ones mixed in there with the good ones, but the good ones I thought were really good. Terminator 2.
The Rock.
Speed. The Rock.
I have not seen Con Air.
Well, Con Air is one of those movies I loved a long time ago, but like it has a lot of cheesy moments now. But it's still fun. Face Off is another one that kind of people would think is ridiculous now, but back then it was amazing. I love both of those movies.
A movie that you wouldn't think is ridiculous today and still holds up is Die Hard.
Right, which that's actually the 80s, but yes.
What really?
I think it was 88 or 89.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're right.
But it's close enough. That period, the late 80s, early 90s, those are some of my favorite action movies. Like, Speed is one of them. Terminator 2, like I said. Die Hard. And then you follow, like, I like Tony Scott's movies from that time. The Last Boy Scout and True Romance. Like, those are some fantastic, and they look amazing. Like, I don't really, whatever film they were using or, things like that, I just love the look of those early 90s action movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like I said, I think this one had that feel.
Right.
You had the one-liners in there occasionally.
Right.
Not overdone.
And not overly silly either.
Right. No, it's pretty cool. Yeah. Judgment is coming.
Right.
So.
And I like, there's a moment where he's thrown like a flash grenade type thing into the room. And they haven't, the group of people, it's like 10 guys or something, haven't noticed. And I guess he's got a speaker system built into like his suit or something. Because he's doing like a loudspeaker thing, but he's only talking into like his glove. But he's like,
it's his gun, actually.
Oh, it's his gun. Okay.
Yeah, he's telling his gun what weapons he's wanting to use.
Right, and I noticed that. Obviously, it has different like ammunition. There's different types of ammunition in his gun. But I didn't realize his gun was also like his loudspeaker, I guess, or his megaphone. But he's telling those guys, you have 20 seconds to comply. You have 10 seconds. And they're like, oh yeah, you have 5. And he's like, thanks for the heads up. and then he just starts like shooting them all.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Which I like that part a lot. I thought that part was great. Thanks for the heads up.
Now, I could be wrong. I don't know if that was his gun or not, so it might have been his glove or something.
Right. Well, his gun kind of does everything, so I wouldn't be surprised if it is his gun. Mm-hmm. It was his bike in the beginning of the film. The movie kind of opens up with a high-speed chase between a couple of thugs driving a van and Judge Dredd on his motorcycle. And after he crashes the van, he tells his bike to he's like, activate crowd control. And then the bike, from what we see, it just sounds like it starts talking. But I don't know if there's anything else that the bike does in the comics or anything, but his bike kind of has, voice command activated type functions. So I wouldn't be surprised if his gun, if he didn't say anything in the movie, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's like speaker or something, and it turns into a megaphone. I don't know though. It's a good question. But yeah, I could get the sense that it feels kind of like an early 90s action movie.
Right. And I think they pulled it off nicely.
Yeah. There's a lot of slow motion in this film, but it's
well, there's a reason for that.
Right, exactly. I was going to say it's warranted, I guess, because of the slow motion.
At first you didn't know what was going on. I remember seeing the first scene where she's in the bath and she's like taking her hand up, splashing the water up in the air, and it's just sitting there. And it was so long, and I'm like, why are they why are they spending so much time on this?
Yeah.
But then they explain it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the slow-mo narcotic.
Right.
Which is the whole point of this movie.
Right. And the idea behind this narcotic is it makes your brain feel like time goes at 1% its normal speed, which I think is a little ridiculous. I don't know if during the slow motion scenes, I'd be curious to see if somebody figured out exactly what percentage it's actually moving compared to the normal, 24 frames per second or whatever.
I agree, though. I think it's ridiculous, not necessarily because of that, but my question is, why would anyone want that drug in the first place?
I don't know.
You're not going to be able to do anything.
Well, that's what I was wondering. She's moving her hand. Like, if you think about how fast she's moving, actually, she's going it's a pretty quick movement, right?
Sure.
But the way we see it, and presumably the way she sees it, is it's going really slowly, and all that water is slowly moving, right?
Right. So
your brain perceives time moving at 1% the normal speed, but can you react faster than that? Because my whole thing is maybe you would feel like the Flash type of thing. You know what I mean? If you saw somebody running towards you, you could get out of the way quicker. I wonder if it speeds up your reaction time.
I would assume it would, but that doesn't mean that it's going to happen any faster.
Right? No, it's happening at normal speed. You're not going to be able.
You're not going to be able to watch any movies.
No.
You're not going to be able to listen to any music. You're not going to even be able to have a conversation with someone.
Nope.
You're forever alone in this frozen world.
It's very true.
Waiting for it to wear off so you can do something.
That's a really good point, and something I did not think about. There's really only one thing you can do on this drug, and that's sit in a bathtub and splash water on yourself. It seems like the drug is it's used more for punishment. When they throw those three guys off the balcony, they give them some slow-mo first, so that way it feels like a long way down.
Right. Well, I mean, they use it as punishment, but they're selling it to other people that are wanting to use it
recreationally.
Themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm guessing here's my guess, is number one, it's highly addictive. So once people start using it, they can't stop. So let's say a couple, you try it out, and then suddenly you're hooked.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be my guess.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're right. I mean, other than maybe they don't really go into it. Obviously, they just say it's a big seller, I guess, and the distribution all comes from that tower. I was going to say, maybe it's just like, even though they focus on slowing down time, or your brain perceiving time is slower, but there's got to be more to it than that. It can't just be, that's all it does. It's got to give you some sort of like high, right?
I guess.
Otherwise, otherwise, you're just taking a drug to feel like you're going in slow motion, which is just weird.
Right. But you would still just be sitting there with this high.
Right. No, that's true.
I mean, you're trying to move, and you're moving, but, I mean, how long did it take? How long do you think in her mind it took for her arm to come out of that water? She was probably sitting there
as long
for
as
10
it took for us
minutes
to see it. Yeah.
waiting for it just to come out. In her mind, at least.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So you think, even though, like, that's my question, is the slow motion scenes that we're seeing, are those scenes, even though they're in slow motion, are they even happening faster to us than they're happening in their mind? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Maybe not. The whole point of the shot was just to give you an idea of this is what's going on in their mind.
Well, let's talk about her. Lena Headey, or Headey, I don't know how you say her name. I apologize. I'm going to say Headey just from now on because I don't know.
Mama?
Yeah, she plays Mama, which I always thought was weird that they said Mama rather than Mama. Like each one gets its like own
they do.
emphasis.
Dredd does it, and I was like, oh, okay, it's Mama.
Right, Mama. She plays Mama, who is the leader of this gang, and essentially the main villain of the film. What did you think of her performance?
I thought she was okay. She was a little bit dry for me. I felt like the villain, for me in superhero movies, is a very, very important part, which I'm pretty sure everyone would agree with.
Absolutely.
It's one of the things that makes Batman so intriguing, are his villains.
Right.
I just didn't think she had much to bring to, to the livelihood or color of the movie.
Right. Well, I think she did good with what she had. She did well with what she had. I thought her character's just kind of underdeveloped, perhaps. They give her a small backstory, which is basically she was beaten by like a gang leader.
Yeah,
and
she was a prostitute, wasn't she?
Was that what it was? I
think she was.
I meant to rewatch that scene because I couldn't remember. So she was, I guess she was a prostitute who was beaten by a gang leader, and she killed him and took over his business, basically. And they said her whole thing is violence. She's basically, if you offend her or you try to rise against her, she's going to put an end to that in a very violent way.
Mm.
So that's pretty much all the backstory we get from her.
The only time I really felt like afraid of her, if I were in the movie, was when that the tech guy that they had that was like watching the cameras and everything, and she had that knife to his belly. Mm-hmm. That was kind of creepy.
Right.
I was like, yeah, I'd be freaking out too.
Right. Yeah, for the most part, she stays up in her like headquarters, which is on this top floor or something.
200th floor.
200th floor. Okay. And she doesn't really ever come out of there. She's like hired everybody else to try to kill these judges that are in her block. So yeah, she's not, other than with the tech guy, who I like, by the way. He's an actor whose name I believe is pronounced Donald Gleason, who's made a couple of pretty good movies. He's going to be also in the new Star Wars, I believe. Other than him, she doesn't really, pose much of a threat, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. She was a villain almost just to be a villain in the movie.
Right.
And let's make her the leader of a gang, throw a couple scars on her face.
Right.
And let her be the one that makes the threats.
Right. And that's pretty much all she does. Yeah. So yeah, I agree. She's not given a whole lot to do. She's not super frightening, other than with the tech guy. So with what she was given, I thought Lena Headey did a pretty good job.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, it would have been nice to have that villain be a little bit more developed, I guess.
Yeah. Memorable. Something.
Memorable, yeah. Yeah, she is kind of forgettable. Like I said, I had seen this movie before, and I almost forgot that she was in it.
Yeah.
Which is pretty bad, because she's the main bad guy.
Yeah, yeah.
I remembered, Karl Urban, and I remembered Olivia Thirlby, but I almost completely forgot about Mama, which is bad.
Let's just give a quick recap of why they're in the building to begin with.
Sure.
All right, so like we were saying, Mama is I gotta get it right. Is in control of this of the Peace Trees building,
right?
And basically, the judges get a call to go there because these three guys have been thrown from a building, skinned alive. I'm trying to remember why that happened.
I believe they were trying to sell a different drug it was like level 35 or something. So they were just caught kind of being a competitor, I believe. Okay. Or they were selling it might have been they were selling, if I were, I think that's what it was, but they could have been selling maybe their version of slow-mo, or they were reselling it or something. I'm not sure. But they were basically taking a bite out of Mama's money.
Gotcha. That's right.
So to make an example out of them, they skinned them and then tossed them off the roof of tossed them off the 200th floor or whatever, after giving them a little slow-mo first to really enjoy the fall.
Right. Now, honestly, if I were going to be thrown out of the building, I would appreciate the slow-mo. Because at least you're not getting that, unless you're getting that sensation of falling the entire time.
Right.
And of course, the worst part is sitting there going, well,
here's the ground.
I'm going to be slowly making my way down, and I have to watch my death this whole time. I'm going to know that it's almost like an hourglass, watching an hourglass go down.
And I think that's the point. Yeah.
Right.
I thought of that too, though. I thought of it more during the end because they did it a lot slower at the end for a certain character. But I remember thinking that too. I was like, it'd almost be like flying, kind of. Like you're falling, but you're like experiencing it so slowly.
Right.
Or it'd almost be like levitating or something, until you get so close to the ground where you're just like, well, here it is. Here's my
I have
death.
about 10 seconds. In all actuality, I have about a millisecond, but it's going to feel like 10 seconds.
Right.
I liked the line that Dredd says to what's his partner's name? The
Anderson.
Recruit? Anderson. Yeah, that's right. That he says to her, he's kind of giving her just a little lesson about the judges, that out of all of the crime that happens in what's the city called again?
Mega City 1.
Mega City 1. All the crime that happens in Mega City 1, they will only get 6%.
Right.
So there's
like 17,000 crimes a day or something.
Yeah, like there's a lot of stuff going on.
Uh-huh.
And these guys are only just getting a minuscule amount of it. But this was a big deal. So
we should also point out, for anybody who... I mean, I'm hoping, like I said, you've seen the movie by now, if you're listening to the podcast. But judges in this future... There's no more legal system, really. Judges they're cops, but then they're also judges and juries and executioners. So they sentence you on the spot, and they either put you in what's called an ISO cube, which we never get to see, which is something else I almost wish we could see in this film. Or they sentence you to death, which then they just shoot you on the spot, essentially. So there's judges have a lot of power, basically.
Too much power.
Maybe too much power, right. They don't really get into that either. They just this is a very kind of straightforward action movie. They don't really get into like the moral ethics of judges and who judges are and things like that.
I was really wondering, starting out in this movie, if that was going to be where some of the story went.
Right.
I I was gonna say they kind of do, but they don't. And that's where I was going to talk about the other judges that show up later. And first of all, I was kind of hoping, and I'm sure this is in the comics, which I said before I have not read. But I was kind of hoping that Judge Dredd, his helmet would be unique to him.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously that's not the case.
Right, they all look the same, I think.
Yeah. I noticed the last one that was left, the one Anderson shoots, his helmet was not painted red.
That was a woman. Oh, no, I see what you're saying. The last guy. Right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. But, so I was kind of hoping for that, but then, as a little bit of time went by, I was like, I guess it's kind of cool, kind of like Green Lanterns.
Right.
All the Green Lanterns have the same suit. All the judges have a uniform.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think it would have been cool to just give Judge Dredd
his own unique helmet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't notice that the last guy's wasn't red, but I assumed they all were because remember that there's 3 gangs in Peachtree Towers that she kind of overtakes. I can't remember what the first 2 are, but the last one was called the Judged.
Yeah.
And they had like face paint on, and their faces were painted like a judge's helmet. So They had the red kind of, it almost looks like an M sort of across their face.
Yeah, I liked that. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I did too.
They're probably in the comic.
More of them. Yeah, they might be.
And I agree. Watching this movie, I'm kind of interested to pick up some Judge Dredd comics now.
Yeah, me too. Actually, I saw some at Barnes & Noble. It was like kind of a compilation type thing. So I might have to go flip through it and check it out. Speaking of helmets, though, this is a note that I wrote down, and a plot hole, perhaps, if I want to get your thoughts on this.
Okay.
Anderson does not wear a helmet throughout the entire movie.
Right.
And Dredd, at some point, calls her out on it. And he's like, I was wondering when you'd realize you forgot your excuse me, when you forgot your helmet. And she says that helmets, or she doesn't say her helmet, I think or maybe she does, but she says the helmet interferes with her psychic abilities. And then he's got a great line where he goes, I think a bullet might interfere more. But, so I was thinking, is it just her helmet? I was thinking it was all helmets for a little while. Because she's an assessment, right? She's in assessment. So she's basically taking a test to become a judge.
Uh-huh.
And every decision she makes goes towards that test. And every question that Dredd asks her, she's got to answer correctly. So I noticed that she would always answer those questions kind of with a question mark on the end, like, is this right?
Uh-huh.
And so I wondered if she couldn't read Dredd's mind because of his helmet. And I thought, well, that was cool, because that way that gives her a way to not cheat, basically, on the assessment.
Right.
But then at the end, when those other judges show up, she knows immediately that the woman judge is not there to help her.
Right.
And so the helmet does no good. Right. So either she chose not to read his mind during the assessment, or she just chose to ignore it. I don't know.
That would have to be, because, I mean, like you said, it's either a bad plot hole,
right?
But I think there are other ways to look around it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's something she turns on and off.
Right. Yeah, she does. She does.
So I'm guessing she's just choosing not to read Dredd's mind because she does want to pass this for real. She doesn't want to cheat. But, and in that case, it was very smart of her to choose to read that female judge's mind when she shows up.
Yeah.
Real quick. To decide whether or not she was telling the truth. I like the dynamic between Anderson and Dredd. Dredd, in the very beginning of the movie, is very by the book. It's black and white with him. There's like, I don't know what her title would be, but there's a woman that is introducing Dredd to Anderson in the beginning. And she tells him that she passed like a written exam or something. She failed it by 3 points. She says it's marginal. It's just 3 points. And he goes, it's not marginal. She failed.
Yeah.
And so it's for him, she didn't pass. You know, there's no in between there. You either pass, you either fail. You're either a criminal or you're an innocent, you know, type of thing. And with Anderson, there's a little more to it than that. She tells us she was born and raised in a block like Peachtree's. There's good people in there, you know. Yeah. Whereas Judge Dredd kind of sees everybody in that block as kind of scum. And so by the end of the film, I think it's really nice how they both have kind of changed. She's become a little bit more like Dredd in the sense that, I mean, she has a hard time making her first execution. You know, his sentence is death, and she hesitates for a while until she finally does it. By the end of the movie, she really doesn't have any problems. She's like...
Yeah, they're going through the building. She's shooting guys on the floor in the back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's changed in that sense, which, is that for the better? Who knows? But Dredd has also changed because at the end, she's failed that test, essentially. You know, she lost... One of the requirements for passing is if you... Or I guess one of the stipulations or whatever you would want to call it, is if she loses control of her weapon or loses her weapon, that's an automatic fail. And she was, at one point, kind of taken hostage by one of the gang members and lost her weapon. So she should have failed the test, but at the end, he tells that same woman that she passed. So like they both have kind of changed a little bit. They see the world a little differently now after this one day. Which is kind of nice, you know? There's a little bit of an arc to those two characters' stories, which I liked.
Did he know that she lost her weapon?
Well, she talks about it. He says...
oh, she does.
When she lets the tech go, he looks at her and he says, "You mind explaining yourself?" Because...
oh, yeah, that's right.
He's like, abetting a criminal or whatever is not just automatic failure, it's a crime. And she's like, "I already failed when I lost my weapon." And... she goes, "I know I'm not going to ever be a judge." But then she says he was a victim. The tech guy was not necessarily a criminal. He was kind of forced to do everything by Mama. He even had his eyes cut out, which was crazy. He had like cameras or whatever in his eyes. I don't know if you ever noticed.
Yeah. I didn't catch that at first, and then I saw the shot where they were showing his like irises doing the focusing and stuff, and
they were almost like octagons.
Right, but then later on in the movie, they showed another glimpse, which I did remember seeing earlier, of Mama like holding him down, and
and his eyes are bleeding.
Yeah,
right, and I remember seeing that in the beginning too, but I didn't register that it was him.
Right, so and I don't know if you were supposed to.
I don't know if you were. I'm
wondering if that's why they showed it again.
Mm-hmm.
Like later on in the movie, it was like, remember this guy lost his eyes? It was that guy.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, they showed it in the beginning because they were talking about how violent she was.
Right, exactly.
So I don't even know if we'd met the tech yet by that point.
I don't think so.
So we wouldn't have recognized him anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, she does tell Dredd.
So did she? I was thinking, didn't she say she was choosing not to be a judge? Like she didn't want to be a judge anymore?
I thought she was saying she just knew since she failed, she knew she was never going to be a judge.
Oh. I took it, and maybe I'm wrong. I'd have to listen to the exact line again. But I took it as her saying, I've been through all this, and I now am deciding this is not what I want to do.
I don't think so, because if that was the case, I don't think Dredd would have told the boss lady that she had passed. Because if, now that he said she's passed, they're going to want her to become a judge.
I figured he just told her that because,
it didn't matter.
Right. It was like she passed. If she wants to be a judge after this, she passed. I don't know.
I guess it could go either way. I took it as she knew she was not going to be a judge because she had already failed the test. So it didn't matter what she did from then on. But yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it.
I one of the things I liked, which I don't really remember seeing this in too many films, and it was kind of cool to see, was when the gang members were searching for Anderson and Dredd, when they had the guy that they were taking in,
mm-hmm.
and they were going around a corner in a hallway, and then you see two gang members who spot them.
The kids, right?
Yeah, were they kids? I guess they were kids. They were young. But yeah, they were looking at him, and they're going around the corner, and they both have their guns drawn, but they're hiding. And then he's like, "Why didn't you shoot him?" And he's like, "Why didn't you?" And they were just so paralyzed at the thought of revealing themselves to Dredd.
Yeah.
Which was really cool. I mean, these guys are afraid of this guy, like truly terrified of Dredd.
Yeah.
And that's something that you don't see too often, which I think you should see more, especially in like Batman movies and stuff. Just these guys are, I don't want him to know I'm here.
Right. Yeah, and those were the kids I was talking about. So I feel like I like what you're saying, and I do wish they would do stuff like that, especially with Batman movies. I think it'd be awesome. And so it's cheapened a little bit because they are younger. He does say to them they have a choice to either be sentenced to death or however long in juvie cubes. So I guess they are under 18. They could be 16 or 17 or anything. But still, they should have had more people probably afraid of Judge Dredd. I mean, Judge Dredd, I think, has a pretty big reputation in that part of town. I don't know if throughout all of Mega City 1, since it's such a big area. But when those other judges show up, those bad, like the bad judges, I guess, they say they want 1 million credits to kill him. And she's like, "Are you kidding me?" And he goes, "Do you know who you're dealing with?" And she says, "No." And he goes, "I do."
Right.
Which she says no, so maybe he's not as big of a deal. But him saying "I do," it's going to be 1 million credits, makes me believe that like he's the best of the best.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And they've got 4 guys after him.
Right.
Did they show how that deal was set up? Like,
no, and that's basically she says we should call 911, and then those other judges show up. So I don't know. You know, I'm assuming those other judges have always kind of been in Mama's pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, obviously they didn't actually call 911; they called those guys. But no, they didn't really talk about how that deal was ever made or give any kind of backstory to that at all.
And whatever happened to the judges that were outside waiting? You know?
He just told them they were relieved, so I guess they went home.
Oh, did he? Okay. Okay.
Well, they show up and they're like, the 4 judges are like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "The tech guy can't get the door open. He says there's a software malfunction." And then the door opens and the judge looks at him like, "You're an idiot." And he's like, "You're relieved."
Right.
And the 2 judges are like, "All right, sorry."
They're like, "Thank God I'm starving."
Yeah. Let's go get some Taco Bell. With those judges, they're down to 1 judge now, and he does armor-piercing bullets from his gun, shoots through the wall. That's a moment that I don't really like, because Dredd sits there and watches the bullets fly through the wall right next to him. He sees one, doesn't decide to move, sees the second one, still looks at it, and then the third one hits him.
Right.
And,
so he
gets him through the stomach.
So he should have been on the ground.
Yeah, or as soon as that first bullet came through the wall, he should have been like, "Oh, I need to get out of here." But it's like, it just takes a split second too long, I think. He just looks at it. It's just one of those nitpicky things. But the thing I like about that scene is once the bad guy is killed, he stands up and he starts kind of peeling off his clothes so he can get to his wound. And he says, like, "Basic field dressing." And he pulls out what looks like, he puts like super glue on it.
Right.
And then a stapler. Like, that's basic field dressing. Is a stapler.
That is apparently made from the same technology as the self-lacing shoes from Back to the Future 2.
Right, yeah, exactly. It's probably the same company, I imagine. So, right, because it not only staples it, like, it tightens it, too, yeah. So,
I also thought, you mentioned it took a moment too long, and when the way the guy dies, by Anderson being behind him and shooting him.
That took too long, too.
There's a long dialogue between them where I'm like, she's given that guy a lot of opportunity to just shoot Dredd right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought the same thing. Like, it goes on.
Because he tells him, "Wait." And he's like, "Well, why do you want me to wait? Blah, 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 blah." And then he's like, "So she can shoot you." after. It was a little while.
It was a little too long. I agree with that. Absolutely. I mean, it could have just been, he's like, wait. Because I liked how he was like, are you kidding me? He's
Right.
like, the famous Judge Dredd, I point a gun at your face, and you say, wait?
Yeah.
Like, it should have just been that.
Yeah.
And then she should have shot him. Because that I thought was kind of believable. But the fact that it just he's like, what do you want me to wait for?
Right.
Blah, 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 blah. He's like, I can't believe you said that. Like, it just goes on just 3 or 4 sentences, probably too long.
Yeah.
And then he gets shot. And you're like, he should have shot Dredd by now.
Yeah.
Like, there's no
exactly.
reason for him to go into this monologue. Yeah. So I agree with that. That's absolutely true.
Speaking of monologues before you kill someone in a movie, which usually ends up not working in your favor.
Right.
There was a line that I liked where most people in movies, it's that typical James Bond thing where the villain's like, all right, I'm going to leave you tied up here with these sharks swimming around, and
Right.
I'll see you later. After the rail gun or the chain gun just takes out that floor, and then they're searching for him, and then one of the guys goes, no one could have survived that. Or they couldn't have survived that. And then the other guy goes, they're not dead until we find them.
Right.
And I was like, that's a smart man. That's a smart man right there.
Yep. Adding on to that scene, I do have a question because she basically, she concentrates fire, especially in one spot, and it just tears up that floor. And it creates a hole in the side of the building where Dredd and Anderson and Kay is the guy that they've got. That's their prisoner, I guess you could say. Jump through the hole, and they land on, it's like a skate park.
Right.
It's like a half pipe for skateboarders and stuff. And I would like to know who the genius was that decided to build a skate park on like level 75 of some tower. How many kids have died from just like falling off their skateboard and then plummeting to their death? That's what I would like to know.
That's why they call it extreme sports, Jeff.
Right, exactly, yes. So I thought that was a little weird, but again, it's it's kind of a ridiculous world, so I can let those things kind of slide. But I did wonder that this time around. I was like, why is that skate park so high up?
That's funny. I didn't even think about that.
Because they say, I mean, at first I didn't really think about it either, but Dredd says, he calls Control, and he's like, we need backup. And she's like, can you stay where you are? And he goes, no, if they find us, we got nowhere to go. And then he goes, we got to go back in. And it's because they're up high. They can't, like, if they were found there, the only thing they could do is jump off the building.
Yeah.
So it's a skate park that's really high up.
Yeah. Something my wife Jordan brought up to me. I think it happened early on in the movie. They're going through, and first time he notices he's getting low on ammo. But he's killing bad guys, right?
Uh-huh.
That have guns.
Right.
Why does he not
take their guns?
Their guns.
Yeah.
To make up the difference?
That's a good question. Kudos to your wife, because I didn't even think of that, which is silly. I'm guessing, obviously that ammunition doesn't work in his gun, which he's going to want to keep.
Right.
But why doesn't he just holster his gun and use the other guns?
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I have no answer for that.
Okay. Just making sure. Well, that's about all I have on Dredd.
The only other note I wrote is having
I just
Olivia.
thought of something. Go ahead.
Okay, having Olivia Thirlby as a recruit was kind of a good choice, especially in terms of like an origin film, if you will, because she's able to ask a lot of questions and get a lot of exposition out, or he's able to ask her questions too.
Yeah,
and say, he's like, "Why are we doing this?" And she explains it because it's part of her test, but it also lets the audience know this is how the things work.
Absolutely, the way Green Lantern. So I thought that was done
right. Yeah, so I thought that was kind of smart, actually.
Yeah. The last thing I was going to point out was Mama has that little detonation device, attached to her heartbeat, and Dredd shoots her in the side, not to kill her. But he's like, I wonder how far that the range is for that thing.
Yeah.
And throws her out the building. That was quite...
Gives her a little slow-mo first. So
yes,
she
he
can
does
really
give her
enjoy
slow-mo. Kudos for that. But that was quite a risk he took.
Yeah.
He had no idea.
What if the range was that good?
Right. And honestly, in a world like that, in the future, they have the kind of technology they do. I mean, she has a detonation attached to her heartbeat.
Uh-huh.
I would think the range would be quite okay from that distance.
Clearly, Dredd knows better.
He apparently does.
I liked that, though. I mean, I agree with you. In that world, in that future, it probably does have that range, you know?
Yeah.
Especially because he drops her into, like, it's like this open area.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of the center of the building, and so there's really nothing obstructing the signal. It's just far away.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's 200 floors.
Right. So it's far. I don't know how far do you think, in terms of feet, is 200 floors?
2,000 feet? Because 10 feet of floor.
Okay. So 2,000 feet.
Maybe a little more.
I don't know how.
Maybe 15 feet of floor. It's quite a distance.
3,000 feet. So it's more than half a mile if it's 15 feet of floor.
Yeah.
So that is quite a distance, but I like that at the end of after she hits the ground, which by the way is a nice like slow motion exploding face shot.
I liked how she closed her eyes as she was right there and turned her head for it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So then it shows like a close up of the sensor, you know, and it turns like red as if it should be setting the bombs off. And it cuts back to Dredd and all he says is, "Yeah." I thought that was cool.
I did too. Yeah, he didn't. I never. There was never a line that I can remember him saying where I was like, "That was kind of cheesy."
Yeah, there was. Yeah, I don't. There's not too many eye rolling moments from him. I don't think in this film.
Yeah, there really weren't. I don't think there were that many in general.
I don't either. I'm trying to think if there's like some from Mama's part or
right.
But I can't remember. I don't recall ever rolling my eyes or thinking something was.
I don't either. I don't remember thinking that's a little hokey or that unbelievable or whatever. The only thing that really drops down the movie for me was just it was very confined.
Right. Which was on purpose because of the whole Peachtree thing.
It was, and don't get me wrong, it was okay. You know, it was okay, but it felt like to me throughout the movie, it felt like the movie wanted to do so much more than it was.
Yeah.
It was a good, just straight up run and survive movie. Is really what it was.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, you want to go ahead and rate it?
Yes.
All right. I give it 3.5 stars.
I would give it a solid B+.
A B+. It's a little higher than I was expecting.
Higher?
Yeah. I was.
You were expecting higher, or you thought it was higher?
I was guessing you were going to give it a B-.
No, I had to sit there and debate whether or not I wanted to give it an A- or a B+.
Oh, wow.
So it's just for what it is. I think it's really good. I forgot kind of how much I liked it as I was watching it today. I will say it does take it's 95 minutes, so it's a short movie, but I do feel like it could be a tiny bit shorter. Like you said in the beginning, it takes a little bit for the ball to get rolling a bit.
Uh-huh.
But I really like it. So I think a B+ is fair.
It was good. I was expecting to like it. I liked it. It was very different than what I was expecting.
Uh-huh. To bounce off what you were saying about it being confined, that's one of the reasons why I think it would be nice to see a sequel, you know, to see more of Mega City 1 and see Dredd out there on the streets and stuff.
Yeah, I would like to see a sequel to this.
Yeah.
As we were doing the podcast, as we were talking about it, you know, during this podcast, I think I liked it even more. Because I remember
like just talking about it?
Yeah, just thinking back and thinking about it. Because I remember when I was initially watching it, before I hit that moment where I was like, I'm enjoying it. Not that I wasn't enjoying it before, but I was like, I'm enjoying this a little bit more than enjoying. I was like, I don't know if I'd ever watch this movie again.
Right.
But I think I would.
It's not something I would watch all the time. Like, it's like a superhero movie I could pop in and watch tonight, and then like a couple of days later pop it in again and kind of have it on type of thing.
Yeah. This
is a movie where you watch it once, you really enjoy it, you let time go by, like a year or two, and you watch it again, you're like, man, I forgot I like this movie so much, you know?
Yeah.
It's one of those movies that kind of just is, from time to time, enjoyable, I think. If that makes sense. I don't know. Most people, I don't think, watch movies as often, or repeat movies as often as maybe we do, but that's how it was for me just now. You know, I watched it when it first came out on DVD. I liked it. And then I rewatched it today, and I forgot how much I liked it.
Mm-hmm. So you didn't see it in theater?
I did not.
Interesting.
I wanted to. I just never got around to it.
Cool.
Well, let us know what you thought about Dredd. Feel free to comment on cinemaheroes.com. You can comment on Facebook, facebook.com/SM and SM podcast, or tweet us at CinemaHeroes. As always, if you're going to make any Amazon purchases, head to cinemaheroes.com first, click on our Amazon banner on the right-hand side. Doesn't cost you anything extra, but we get a tiny percentage of the money you spend, and that's always appreciated. I think, you know what, John? I think we made $50 off of it last month.
Nice. Thank you, guys.
So, yeah, thank you for the purchases you've made. That obviously helps us out with our podcast hosting costs. So, much appreciated.
I can eat this week.
I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzel.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for downloading.